the suspect of a senseless slaying would reveal a wild conspiracy involving a graduation dinner, coercion, a hitman, and a victim who was willing to forgive and even beg the state to have mercy on his own attacker. The night of December 10th, 2003 was supposed to be one filled with celebration and joy for the Whitaker family. Hailing from Sugar Land, Texas, the family consisted of 54-year-old Kent, his 51-year-old wife Patricia, their son Bart, who was 23, and youngest son, 19-year-old Kevin. Older brother Bart was a soon-to-be graduate of Sam Houston State University, which was the cause for the celebration that fateful night in December. When the family got home that night, Bart went to his car to grab his phone before following the rest of his family through the front door. 2003. Bart's brother Kevin was the first to enter the home as the family returned. As they filed into the dining room, an ear-splitting bang was heard throughout the home, and Kevin immediately fell to the floor. Before they could comprehend what was happening, another loud bang, and Patricia too was hit in the chest and went down. Kent was on the porch and angled away from the unknown sniper, who fired a third time, knocking him to the ground as well. Bart was the last to enter and heroically threw himself on the hitman. The two struggled for a bit until the trigger was pulled again, hitting Bart in the left shoulder and stunning him. This gave the intruder his chance to run off, and Bart gave chase, finally attracting some of their neighbors' attention. One of the neighbors rushed over to help and called 911 while using his shirt as a makeshift tourniquet over Ken's wounds. At the same time, Bart was also calling 911 to report that someone had pumped his family full of bullets. He told them that he'd been hit in the arm and that he'd chased the attacker out the back door and up the street but lost him. And the 911 operator was like, "Bart, that's awesome, honey, but please stop running if you have a literal hole in your arm and wait for the paramedics to get there." They asked Bart what the guy looked like, and he said he couldn't get a good look at him, so he wasn't sure, but he thought the attacker was potentially black. By the good grace of Cheddar Bay biscuits, Kent somehow survived the attack, but he said he remembered seeing white skin through the eye holes of the mask. Fortunately, Patricia and the younger son Kevin both didn't survive. Up until that point, Sugar Land, Texas was known for having a low crime rate, even almost non-existent, so an attack like this was completely out of the ordinary. The first detective on the scene literally thought the operator was joking when she told him that 4 people had been shot in the gated community. Ken even said that when he first saw the masked marksman, he thought it was a prank being pulled by one of his son's friends. At the scene, the detectives found the weapon that had been used in the attack, a 9mm Glock registered to Kevin Whitaker. They also found a men's black leather glove lying on the curb next to Bart's car. Their first assumption was that this had been a robbery gone wrong. Intruder breaks into home, plans to steal things, family comes home early, surprises him, he can't leave any witnesses, and realizes his only option is to take them all out, and bada bing, bada boom. It seemed plausible, until they started poking around some more. That's when they noticed the dresser drawers of the master bedroom had all been open a few inches, but unlike their theory, none of the contents seemed to have been rifled through. Even expensive equipment and jewelry that had been left out in plain sight seemed to have gone untouched. In fact, everything seemed to have gone untouched because there were no foreign fingerprints found in the house. The only fingerprints found around the home were from the Whitakers, and investigators theorized that the intruder must have worn gloves and entered the home through a crawl space in Kevin's bedroom, which is, terrifying. There was one thing that the intruder did mess with though, and that was a safe in Kevin's room that had been pried open. Kevin's safe contained a Glock that had been gifted to him by his brother, the same one that had been used in the attack that was later found downstairs. Sheriffs arrived at the scene with 3 hounds to see if they could try to pick up a scent. The hounds picked up smells of the attacker from the glove, the dresser drawers, Kevin's safe, and the Glock itself. Aw, good boys, who's a good detective doggy? Investigators also wanted to look into the backgrounds of each family member to find out why they'd been the targets of this seemingly random crime in the first place. When another armed robbery occurred near the Whitakers' gated community, law enforcement thought their potential suspect had struck again. However, when they got there, the hounds didn't seem to pick up the same scent they'd gotten from the Whitaker house, and it was back to the cutting board. But as the detectives continued their investigation on the Whitakers, they discovered that one of the members of the family didn't have as squeaky clean of a record as they'd made it out to be. Bart apparently had to leave high school after he was caught committing multiple robberies with other students, so they sent him to a Christian academy in the hopes that the Lord could reform him. Around that time, a psychologist evaluated Bart and actually diagnosed him with delusional paranoid disorder, which is not a diagnosis to be taken lightly. People with this disorder have trouble distinguishing between what is real and imagined, and can deal with severe and dangerous bouts of psychosis if left untreated. He needed medication and therapy, not a religious school. But despite the red flags growing up and even an official diagnosis, Bart's parents never punished him for his wrongdoings. In fact, they kind of did the opposite and showered him with love, luxury vehicles, his own townhouse, and they even paid his tuition in full at both Baylor University and Sam Houston State. Whether it was denial or they just couldn't see it, Bart seemed to be dealing with some worsening mental issues that his parents weren't acknowledging. 2 days later, the police department received a tip that Bart actually hadn't been enrolled at Sam Houston University for quite a while now, and they decided to confront him on it. Bart said that was correct, but that he told his mom that he wasn't graduating and she knew it and was cool with it. So the graduation dinner was just for show? And the watch? And the biscuits? Bart's parents still sent him tuition money, however, but no one knows what Bart ended up actually spending the money on. 3 days later, on December 15th, this guy named Adam Hipp went to the Sugarland PD and asked to speak to the lead detective. Ooh, come on, Adam with the T. Adam was a friend of Bart's back in high school, and he had a specific memory of him that would make Bart go from victim numero 4 to suspect numero 1. He told the investigators that 2 years ago, Bart had shocked him with a request. The two had been hanging out when Bart mentioned that he would inherit his parents' share of the family business when they were gone. Adam was like, "That's sick as good for you, bro." And Bart was like, "Yeah, totally. So like, say I were to hire you to do something for me." Adam even handed over to the detectives a diagram of the house that Bart had made for him, which indicated where he was supposed to wait until the family got back from dinner. Bart's roommate from Baylor was supposed to provide the weapon and drive it down from Waco to him. Adam was told to assassinate the whole family, but only to hit Bart in the arm so that he would look like a victim too. And get this, Kent and Patricia found out about it. That's right, Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker actually got wind of Bart's plot after the police received a call warning them about it. But when the police heard about the plot, they thought it was all talk and didn't take it seriously, saying the plan sounded too far out. Well, they told Bart's parents about it, but Bart said it was all a misunderstanding and his parents believed him and it was water under the old bridge, you know? Investigators then tracked down Bart's previous roommate at Baylor, Justin Peters. Justin confessed that he had been involved with multiple different plans to help take out Bart's parents, discussing some plots that had fallen through in December of 2000 and April of the following year. He verified for them that Bart's motive was completely financial. After learning that Bart was keen on hiring his friends, the two investigators decided to look into two of Bart's buddies named Chris and Steven. 21-year-old Chris Brashear was Bart's roommate, and the two of them worked together at this country club with their other friend with a spectacular name, Stephen Champagne. Both Chris and Stephen Champagne denied involvement with the attack, but agreed to give an interview and provide DNA samples. The hounds immediately indicated that it was Chris's scent that they'd picked up on the glove, the dresser drawers, Kevin's safe, and the weapon. Oh, who's a good boy? Bart's friend from high school, Adam, agreed to help take down Bart in exchange for immunity for his original involvement with the plot. So Adam got in contact with Bart and started to record all of their conversations. In one conversation, Bart even agreed to pay Adam $20,000 if he lied to the police about him having the idea back in 2001 and set up a post office box in Dallas to deliver the money to him. But just when they thought that Bart's biscuit was baked, in June of 2004, his Chevy Yukon was discovered abandoned on the side of the road with the engine still running. And Bart was nowhere to be found. With Bart gone, the case stood at a standstill for about a year. Detectives wiretapped both Chris and Steven, hoping to hear if they knew anything about Bart's whereabouts, but the two never spoke about Bart or really to each other at all for that matter. But finally, in August of 2005, Stephen Champagne had a change of heart and decided it was finally time to pop the cork. Champagne met with the detectives and confessed his involvement in the assassination of the Whitaker family. He claimed that he didn't know what the actual plan was in advance, but had agreed to drive Chris Brashear away from the Whitaker house after the attack. He also helped dispose of the evidence in a nearby lake. Stephen took a polygraph test and failed, which ultimately took his immunity off the table. The next day, Stephen gave a recorded video confession implicating himself, Chris, and Bart as the perpetrators in the Whitaker family slayings. He showed the detectives where they discarded the evidence and was immediately arrested. Divers eventually found the bag of evidence containing a water bottle that had Chris's DNA on it, a chisel with traces of paint on it from Kevin's safe, 2 license plates, and a glove that matched the one from the scene. On September 14, 2005, detectives got word that Bart was hiding in Mexico. The tip came in from a former coworker of Bart's who'd found out that Bart had been using his own name as his new identity, Rudy Rios. Apparently, Bart paid Rudy $3,000 for his ID and to drive him down to Mexico. Wait, so the guy sold him his ID but then went to the cops to complain about Bart using his ID? Bart, under the new name Rudy Rios, settled down in a local town where he had gotten a job at a furniture store and even started dating the daughter from the family who owned it. And that gnarly scar he had on his arm? He told his new friends that he got it while serving in Afghanistan. He also claimed that he was an orphan and that his mother had been a lady of the night, which was why he had no family. Ugh, the audacity. On September 22nd, Bart showed up to what he thought was a regular job interview in Monterrey, Mexico. There he was met by the authorities who took him into custody and yeeted him across the border back to Texas. Bart was offered a plea bargain in exchange for an admission of guilt, but for some reason he rejected it, so the trial was set for March of 2007. While awaiting trial that year, the assistant DA received a Christmas card from Bart in the mail. In the card, he wrote that they should keep his family in mind during the holidays, causing the DA to worry that Bart was threatening his family. Nothing ever came from it, so I don't think that was his intent, but then again, who's to say? I have no idea what sort of reaction he was hoping the card would receive. Bart refused to enter a plea, which forced the judge to enter a plea of not guilty on Bart's behalf. The first witness to get up and speak was Kent Whitaker himself, who recounted the night that his wife and son were lost in excruciating detail. To really show the courtroom what Bart was all about, the prosecutors played a recording of a phone call between him and his dad from his cell phone where he complained about his attorney. Allegedly, Bart was furious over the fact that his attorney had the nerve to send an associate to go speak with him. The courtroom heard Bart in his own words tell his father that he wanted the best attorney that money could buy. "Daddy, I want the best attorney that money can buy, and I want the golden ticket to the Wonka factory." On the third day of the trial, Stephen took the stand. His job was to tell the courtroom that he had first gotten to know Bart and essentially assassinate his entire character to prove that he was the only person that could have done this. And oh, did the champagne pour. He talked about first meeting Bart in 2003 and how Bart frequently told him that he was an orphan. He also told Stephen that he was like the brother he never had. Hold up. Remember Kevin? Your actual real-life biological brother, Kevin? Ring a bell? Had a whole life ahead of him that you decided to end for your own selfish reasons? Nothing? Cool. He said that by summer of 2003, Bart was joking to him and Chris about opening fire on his family just to see their reactions. In September of 2003, Bart asked Stephen if he would be willing to do the deed for him if Bart got the family out of the house beforehand. Stephen had originally tried to back out, but Bart was all, "Well, technically, you already know about the plan, so if you don't go through with it, you'd be guilty of conspiracy to commit fam slaughter and still be charged." So Stephen agreed to be the getaway driver. Bart then lied to his family, telling them that he would be graduating from Sam Houston State that December and that he wanted a celebratory dinner. On the day of the crime, Bart and Chris drove to Sugar Land in Bart's car with Stephen following. Stephen parked around the back of the restaurant so he could see the family when they arrived and left. The family unknowingly ate their last meal together while Bart enjoyed a bread pudding with congratulations spelled out in chocolate sauce on the plate. After that, he called Chris to let him know they'd be leaving shortly. Stephen followed the family back home and parked in front of the house and waited. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Chris would come sprinting out of the house and jumped in the backseat as the two drove off. Chris stole some cash from Kent's closet, and the two used it to pay for their brewskis at the bar they'd stopped in on the way home. You know, as a job well done. After only an hour and a half of deliberation, the jury found Bart guilty and sentenced him to lethal injection. Both Kent Whitaker and Beau Bartlett, Patricia's brother, pleaded for Bart's life to be spared and that he instead get life in prison. I know. Despite the fact that Bart took half of Kent's own family away from him, Bart was still his son and he couldn't bear to lose another member of his family. It's truly one of those situations where you'll never understand how you'd respond unless you're actually in it. How would any of us respond to a tragedy like this? Both men said they believed that the family had put too much pressure on Bart and he finally buckled under it. They also said he was given too much in life before he was prepared to handle it. Okay, I'll agree with that statement. However, none of their pleas seemed to land on the jury and Bart was completely emotionless during his sentencing. Chris took a plea bargain and received life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years when he'll be 53. Stephen received 15 years in exchange for testifying against Bart and Chris and is actually currently out of prison. In 2008, Kent published a book he titled Murder by Family, where he detailed the events of December 10th and his decision to forgive his son and Chris. Kent has since remarried and travels the country with his wife, speaking on the power of forgiveness. A warrant for Bart's execution was set for February 22nd, 2018 at 6 p.m. The day came and Bart Whitaker ate his final meal at 5:15 p.m. But just 45 minutes before he was to be executed, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment by the governor of the state, which was also the first time the governor had ever done this. In exchange for avoiding lethal injection, Bart forfeited his right to parole. He later released a statement saying he was not only grateful for himself, but also for the sake of his father. Talk about a dry biscuit to swallow. So what are your thoughts on this one? If you had to put yourself in Kent Whitaker's shoes, what would you do? Could you forgive your son, and not only that, but ask for his life to be spared? Talk about an ethical dilemma you hope to never find yourself in. Thanks so much again for watching, you guys. This was Killer Bites, and these are my Cheddar Bay cheesy biscuits. We'll see you next time.